How sweet would it be to win the Liga title against Espanyol? Real Madrid is, of course, Barcelona's greatest rival. And many Culés, especially those of an international audience, are wondering why so many would care about beating Espanyol to the title. They're a team that are 19th in the standings right now and likely to be relegated for their second time in 3 seasons. That's a good question worth answering, and that's what we're going to do today. What's in this Barcelona-Espanyol rivalry? The first thing, of course, that makes a good rivalry is location. We're going to get into history, players, all that stuff, but location is the number one above all else. They're just 6.5 kilometers away from each other from stadium to stadium, and that's about a 15-minute drive, give or take. So certainly, location is the biggest deal. And Gerard Pique, famously in the last few seasons, added some fuel to that fire, saying that, well, even though they're pretty close by, they're over there in Cornellà, and this is FC Barcelona. We're located in the city. We're the city's team, and they're the team of Cornellà, which of course is not as well renowned or an international name that anybody would know. While Real Madrid is the team that does fire people up, of course, for most players, especially again those of Gerard Pique, who've only ever played for Barcelona, came up in their academy, it's very one-sided. But there are a bunch of players currently even playing for Barcelona in their first team who may not feel the same vitriol at Espanyol than others. And there has been some first team overlap and youth team overlap between the two through the years. The first name to mention is Gustavo Green, whose move from Espanyol AC to Barcelona was a huge move that helped FC Barcelona become the, quote, bigger team in the city. And his move to Espanyol the following year is a major reason why they then won the next Copa Macaya. That was 3 teams and 3 titles for Green in the first competition in Catalonia. Other players like Ricardo Zamora, Josep Escola, Zoltan Zibor, Anthony Camps, Laszlo Kubala, and Ernesto Valverde. All big names that made the move directly, one way or the other. But since 1999, very much like Real Madrid, it's almost a do-not-touch off-limits type situation. Only Jonathan Soriano, and recently Martin Braithwaite, made the straight jump from one team to another. Everyone else, like Felipe Coutinho, Alex Vidal, or Denis Suarez, all had other clubs in between. So that move across town doesn't happen that often anymore. At the youth level, because again, kids don't know the heat of a rivalry, things are a bit more back and forth. 2 of the more recent and famous examples, Alejandro Balde, who's currently Barcelona's starting left back, and Alex Collado. They cut their teeth in the academy of Espanyol before Barcelona brought them in. A few seasons ago, Carlos Perez would be another example. And it is that most players who arrive to La Masia from another Catalan academy over the age of like 12 or 13 are usually coming from either Espanyol or CF Dam, a Barcelona-based club that only goes up to the U19 level. And speaking of that U19 and Barça Athletic level, Chus Alba and Astanas Pedrola both cut their teeth at Espanyol first before making the jump in their teenage years. Now it's time to go back to where it all began, the Copa Macaya, the first Catalan Championship taking place, the first competition in Catalonia, all the way back in 1900, so 123 years ago. That first iteration of the competition, the final club of the original 4 that formed the Football Associació de Catalunya in November of 1900, was Sociedad Española de Futbol, which today, after some name changes, is better known as Espanyol. Copa Macaya, named for España's honorary president Alfonso Macaya, who donated the Macaya Cup trophy for what was the first regulated football competition in Spain, took place as the first ever Catalan competition, as I said. Any team in Spain could register, but due to travel, only one non-Barcelona-based team registered, that being Club Tarragona. So in January of 1901, the Copa Macaya began at Barcelona's field at the Hotel Casanovas, and Espanyol withdrew after the first round, contesting suspicious refereeing in favor of España after losing to them 2-0. And adding to that the Gustavo Green element eventually, it should be reminded, and you can go back and look at my History of Football in Catalonia video, that Espanyol AC could have very well been that third giant of Barcelona football, or they really honestly were the first team on top when it came to Barcelona, Espanyol, and Espanyol SC. So again, shouts to them, a team that's been gone for over 100 years. But before they did exit the competition because of all that, the first Derbi Barceloní was contested, a 4-1 win for Barcelona on January 27, 1901. Espanyol's badge at the time was red and white, and their jerseys were also yellow. The change came in 1910 as they modeled their new colors after the coat of arms of Roger of Loria, a defender of the Kingdom of Aragon 800 years ago. Next came the Copa Barcelona in 1903, which was won by FC Barcelona. Their only non-wins in the competition came in 2 2-2 draws with Espanyol, a precursor to the rivalry. By that point, Espanyol was gaining some steam though, having won the 1903 Copa Macaya, the final incarnation of that competition under that name. In 1912 came a big division between the two, because Espanyol were given their title of Real that year. They're officially RCD, Espanyol because they do have royal distinction. And in 1912, it was given to them by the monarchy of the time, King Alfonso XIII. This being the first time that Espanyol was directly connected to the central government in a way that Barcelona would never be in their entire history. While their early history was a bit more about football spectatorship and less about fanhood and having to kind of pick a side, the defining moment did come in 1923, and it wasn't all about Franco. Not all of Spanish history is about Franco. The beef between Barcelona and Espanyol actually came with the guy who came right before General Franco, and that is Miguel Primo de Rivera, the dictator of Spain from 1923 to 1930. Barcelona was also pro-Catalan and anti-central authority, and you don't need to look any farther than the incident at Les Corts in 1925 that forced Juan Gamper to resign to embody that. Espanyol's, we'll say lack of rejection of the regime, created a divide between the two clubs. In 1918, Barcelona joined a campaign to request a statute of autonomy for Catalonia from the Spanish government. Barcelona became the champion of the campaign, and Espanyol didn't take part. And all those little things from 1918 around there to 1930 did start to create this rivalry and negative emotions between the two sides. After that, and continuing to this day, Espanyol does have complaints that the media and press in Catalonia do favor Barcelona. And the targets aren't just small press, it's big press too, like TV3. And Espanyol, while they probably do have a point, obviously the clicks and the videos and the views and all that stuff do come for FC Barcelona more than they do Espanyol. But it's still a gripe that can be a bit fair, with Barcelona and Espanyol both being Catalan sides, but Espanyol not really being spoken about and treated as a Catalan side. Let's go back again just a little bit to talk about the Catalan Championship, because one of the things that does make this rivalry so good is how long it's been going on. Back in 1903, with the end of the Copa Macaya, the Catalan Football Championship was actually contested, with it being the official Catalan League Championship. And from 1903-04 to 1939-40, both those titles won by Espanyol, by the way, there were only 5 total clubs to win the competition. Barcelona won it 21 times and Espanyol won it 11. But their rivalry kicked into second gear in 1929, when they were 2 of the 3 founding members of the Liga from Catalonia, CE Europa being the other one. So their meeting on April 27, 1929, 94 years ago, is seen now as the first official meeting between the two clubs because it is the competition that is still ongoing to this day. And that match finished with a 1-0 win for Barcelona, with Espanyol getting the 1-1 draw at home later in the season. But because of Espanyol's usual place in the league table, it's hard to actually recognize too many memorable moments in this rivalry that actually took place on the field between those two. One of the big ones doesn't really have much to do with Espanyol, but more with Barcelona's history, and that's the debut of Lionel Messi. October 16, 2004, Messi debuted for Barcelona. It was a 1-0 win over Espanyol at the age of 17 years, 3 months, and 22 days, coming off the bench for the match's goal scorer Deco in the 82nd minute, and playing alongside Iniesta, who was also a substitute in the game, Xavi, Ronaldinho, Carlos Puyol, and Victor Valdez, all for the first time. Messi, unsurprisingly, has the most goals in the derby with 25, and Xavi has the most appearances with 36. Some of the other big notable dates is 1939, when Barcelona lost their only La Liga home match opener ever, and that being to Espanyol. And then came the one time since all the old yesteryear that these two teams contested the trophy. That was the 1956-57 Copa del Rey, another 1-0 win for Barcelona, which winds up being one of those score lines that keeps coming up in this rivalry. For Kool-Aids in the 21st century, this rivalry has been defined by 2 players more than any other. You could give me Gerard Moreno or Oscar Duarte or a bunch of players that have played for Espanyol for a number of years, but no, it's 2 guys. It's Raul Tamudo and it's Sergio Garcia. Raul Tamudo was the Espanyol striker who won a La Liga title for Real Madrid without ever playing for them. Late in the 2006-07 season, Barcelona and Madrid were tied on 72 points, with Sevilla sitting on 70. Madrid had the head-to-head advantage, but drew 2-2 with Real Zaragoza in a match going on at the same time as the Catalan derby. But Tamudo scored in the last minute and immortalized himself as an opponent of the Blaugrana, as if his 340 other appearances for Espanyol didn't already do the trick. The other choice was Sergio Garcia, also of Espanyol, and a former Barcelona player who was accused of racially abusing Samuel Umtiti and was a constant thorn in the Barcelona side once he got that ponytail in a bun and was ready to score goals against his deepest rival. But the big picture here, probably why it's taken me 6 years to give credit to this rivalry, is because of how lopsided it's been and how lopsided it probably will always be, with Espanyol going down to the second division and who knows when they'll be back up. In the Liga, the Copa del Rey, the Spanish Super Cup, and the Intercities Fairs Cup, which technically became the Europa League, Barcelona has 125 wins, 44 losses, and 46 draws against Espanyol. In all those competitions we talked about that don't exist anymore, Barcelona has 43 wins, 28 losses, and 17 draws. Espanyol hasn't beaten Barcelona, though, at the Camp Nou since 2009. And Barcelona has not lost to Espanyol in the Catalan Derby in 24 times, dating all the way back to 2009, as I just mentioned. Espanyol also were sent down by Barcelona 3 years ago, as the Parakeets were trying to avoid their first relegation since 1993, 30 years ago. Yet even then, they bounced right back to the Liga in 1994. In fact, Espanyol has only been relegated 5 times, returning to the top division the next year every single time. So I think that does sum up this rivalry pretty well. That Espanyol are always there to be a thorn in the side of Barcelona, but very rarely do they get the better of their city rival. And of course, Espanyols will always feel like this is a bigger rivalry to them than it is to Barcelona. The feeling is for culés that Barca always has bigger fish to fry. But frying those parakeets is something that is important to culés, especially those in Catalonia. So this matchup coming up this weekend is a big one for both these sides as always, and history is on the line again. So I do hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the most played derby in the Liga history. And of course, if you want more of these, always subscribe to the channel, give it a like, let me know, give me some feedback. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.